Hey everyone, this is Haley from Cartoon Universe, and today's video is the top 15 Steven Universe Season 3 episodes. I'm here with Kevin from the Roundtable, Sky from SkywardWing, and of course, as always, Michael. So these are not in any particular order, and Kevin and Sky will do the other 10 on their channels, so look forward to that. We'll link to those in the description below. Now, to start off the list, I chose one of my favorite episodes from Season 3 was Greg the Babysitter. I really personally like backstory episodes, and seeing Greg babysit Sour Cream while Vidalia has a new job was really interesting and entertaining. Also, mostly because Sour Cream and how he sounded, it's kind of what you expected to see of Baby Sour Cream.
Yeah, that was like my favorite part of the episode was Sour Cream's voice.
I know, yeah, it was the actual voice actor just making noises. It shows how Vidalia is growing. You got to see at first, when she was like younger, how she was kind of immature, or like not how she was. We saw her in Onion Friend, but now we got to see how she's kind of turning into the mom that she eventually becomes, and it's really awesome to see that.
Yeah, definitely. To add on to that, Sour Cream is definitely the highlight of that episode. I'm sure it's not just me, but he looks like the Lenny face, like the meme.
Oh yeah,
right. And that always cracked me up. And he had such a deep voice. And on top of that, too, another shining factor of this episode was Rose. Seeing Rose interact with Greg and kind of see how oblivious she is to humans and how babies work and stuff like that. I thought it was really enjoyable.
Yeah, it's weird because that was in the 1980s, so she had been around humans for a long, long time. So you'd think she'd know how babies work by now, but I guess not.
I think my favorite part of this episode was the song in the beginning, because that was my favorite song out of all the Greg songs so far.
Which was this? There was a song in this episode?
Yeah, I was trying to remember.
Yeah.
I need a little change.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Playing the guitar at the beach. Yeah. Oh, it's so nice. I definitely like the moral of this episode too, where he decides to grow up because of all of the shenanigans he had to deal with Sour Cream and Rose, and the fact that Sour Cream could have died or gotten severely injured or something terrible, but he's really grown from that experience.
Well, I mean, going off of that, I think kind of the whole theme of this whole episode was growth, because Rose was explaining how gems don't really grow in the way humans do. And so that kind of confused her at first, but that's one of the things that she loves about them. And so, yeah, that was definitely a highlight of the episode.
I also like how, about growth, that's also shown in the opening song of the episode, because you see Greg, he has to bathe in the ocean, and he's just hanging out with Rose all day, but he's not doing anything really productive. He's not even writing any songs at this point. And then by the end of the episode, he actually gets a job. And you see now in the series, he has a lot more maturity and responsibility and doesn't just lollygag around all day. So it was interesting how he lived before he decided to grow up, and how carefree he was, or how he just showed up to Vidalia's house for food. And she was just whatever. So you can still this is a constant thing that was happening between them.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, so I really like that episode because all of that combined was just a really great flashback episode. Kind of what I think how great this show can be, even showing the past, exploring characters that we really didn't know much about.
I hope I wonder how many episodes we're gonna get set in the past by the end of the series. I wonder if it's gonna be 13 to make up kind of a season or half a season, or just 5, 10, because we get them I feel we get a handful of them within a season. So
what are we at, 4 or 5 now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Next
up is Earthlings. Now, this was a very important episode for the summer of Steven. There's a multiple factors here. We got to see Smoky Quartz for the first time, which confirmed that Steven can indeed fuse with gems. We got to see Jasper get corrupted, which many had been predicting for a long time. And we also learn more about Pink Diamond, which everybody pretty much was caught off guard by how Jasper, was once, associated with Pink Diamond. And she was, in fact, made on Earth, just like other quartz gems. And also, one of my favorite parts, of course, was Peridot saving the day.
Yeah, this is definitely one of my favorite episodes in the series. I won't cover it too much because I actually covered it in a different video. But it's just so jam-packed with information. We hear about Pink Diamond for the first time. We learn more about Jasper and her motivations and her weaknesses as a person. She gets corrupted. We see Smoky Quartz. We have a nice touchy-feely moment with Steven and Amethyst that sounded very inappropriate. Peridot Peridot finally saving the day. It was just full of so many great things and a lot of emotions and laughter, and people getting stabbed in the chest, and I love it, but I don't want to talk too much about it.
See, I think my personal favorite part about that episode was the fact that Amethyst refused to like fight with anyone else but Jasper.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, we're doing this one-on-one. Like, I am going to take you down. And she could barely even lay a scratch on her. And the one line that I remember specifically from that episode is this, us worst gems have to stick together right before they fuse. I was just like, oh, my heart. Oh, that was just so touching. And then we find out that they fuse in that big, beautiful explosion creating smoky quartz. I thought it was wonderful. I love the fact that her weapon is a yo-yo, or their weapon is a yo-yo. I thoroughly enjoyed smoky quartz, and I can't wait to see her in the future some more.
I really love this episode, and the importance of the episode resides in just its title, Earthlings. This has to do with Amethyst, Steven, and Jasper, who are Earthlings as they were made on Earth. And this was a really great send-off to Jasper's character as a villain, because when she returns, I really doubt she's still going to be an antagonist. But when she served as an antagonist, she serves as the perfect foil to them, because she's loyal to Homeworld, unlike Pearl, who's called a defective Lost Pearl, Amethyst, who is a defective court soldier, while Jasper's a perfect court soldier, and then Rose and Steven, because they love the Earth, and Jasper hates the Earth. And all these things combined is what led to Jasper's downfall, her loyalty to Homeworld. So she refused to accept help from Steven. And then while Garnet loves fusion and fuses a relationship, and Jasper just views it as a vehicle, as like a cheap tactic, and she used it in desperation, and once again failing to understand what makes fusion important, and that's what ultimately bit her in the ass, because now she's corrupted. And on top of that, the build-up to Smoky Quartz was really appropriate, because looking back at it, they gave about like Crack the Whip, Steven versus Amethyst, and I feel like there was another one.
A little bit of Beta.
Yeah, Beta, and then I think Bismuth, because Steven and Amethyst were kind of both left out, so they build up to that fusion in a really appropriate way. So it felt natural when they actually did it, and they kind of foreshadowed it, and I think Alone together, because Steven and Amethyst were practicing the fusion dance together, but they didn't fuse. So and the fight scene was like the best fight scene so far in the show, I think. I think Stevani versus Jasper, it was good, but it was also kind of like lackluster in terms of actual action. But here, it was like nonstop, like punches thrown with the yo-yo. And Smoky Quartz's theme, if you listen to that on SoundCloud, it's so good. It's like really, it reminds me of like Mario.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
I don't know if that was the intention or not, but yeah, I really enjoyed this episode, and I hope Jasper comes back soon.
So yeah, you definitely hit the nail on the head right there with what happened in the episode. It was a total game-changing episode, I think, and it was probably one of the best of the whole season, if not the whole series so far. Next up is Mr. Greg, and of course this was Steven Universe's first musical episode. So we know that Greg got a bunch of money from Marty, and he's starting to spend it, and this might be a way people could say he's spending it well, or at least he's spending a ton of it in Empire City. And it was kind of a break from like other things that had been happening, and it was just great to see Pearl and Greg and Steven kind of all alone. And of course it had songs like Both of You and It's Over and Over, Isn't It, which were immediate favorites to a lot of people. And of course, the big thing in this episode was Pearl starting to get over her resentment towards Greg for, Rose choosing him over her. And so we also get to see that it takes Steven to be the one to get these two characters to understand each other. And for that, I think it's an amazing episode.
Yeah, it's really a great episode. I'm glad there's finally closure between Pearl and Greg. I'm kind of surprised all it took was a couple musical numbers and that's it. Everything's fine. But I really loved it. It was really touching. Both of you definitely hit me in the feels. Got me a little teary-eyed. But this is a great episode. I'm just curious as to how Pearl thought she wasn't waking anybody up with that song, because she was like belting on that balcony.
I really liked how in that episode that they actually ended up resolving that situation between them, because it's been going on the entire series. Like, it's been over and over and over again, and they were finally able to resolve it. And you know what they say about Steven Universe is things move forward either through crying or through singing. And there was a lot of crying and singing in this episode, so resolving it there was very, very appropriate. And both of you, I prefer more than It's Over, Isn't It? I like Steven a lot, and the piano, it's such a beautiful song. And them actually working out together to dance towards the end, I thought it was really, really appropriate. And they drive off into the sunset all happily. I adore this episode. Definitely one of my favorites.
I think Jello Apocalypse is this is basically Steven Universe, and hits this episode on the head when he said all development's done through crying and singing, because that's this entire episode. And all the musical numbers, this felt like an animated Broadway musical. Everything flowed so well and naturally, despite only being 12 minutes. No songs felt too long or too short. And the animation was top notch. You can tell they put a lot of love and care into this episode like they haven't for other episodes. And I remember Rebecca Sugar saying at Comic-Con, she said she would work on this episode, the songs in advance before it even went to production, just so they could follow this in. And I think that combined with the overall resolving Pearl and Greg, which was something that, as Sky said, has gone through the entire series. It's just I'm pretty sure when Steven Universe ends, this is going to be a lot of people's top 5 episodes of all time, if not one of the best. And it managed to be a really good episode without being really plot heavy or lore heavy or having too many gems. It was just Steven, Greg, and Pearl, which goes to show just how talented these writers and storytellers and storyboarders are, that they can just take a handful of the cast and make a really enjoyable story out of them.
Definitely.
So yeah.
Yeah, so this episode really shows just how Steven Universe can be good at making almost any kind of episode. And of course, with their first musical one, they definitely did an amazing job on it. Next up is Monster Reunion. In this one, we get to see Centipede again, one of my favorite characters. And, we see that Steven gets his healing powers back, but unfortunately, it's not really enough to heal a corrupted gem. But we do learn a lot through Centipede about the Gem War and kind of the end of it, what her part or her role of it was. And we got to see how the gems were corrupted pretty much, or there's big hints towards it, what exactly happened in this. And of course, this episode was very emotional, but at the very least, we got to see a happy ending with Centipede once again finding her crew, although they are corrupted just like her.
Yeah, I really liked the ending. It was kind of bittersweet because they're still corrupted, unfortunately. But I actually remember seeing a clip of this on Dailymotion that leaked, and I swore it was fake, and I was extremely surprised to find out that it actually happened, especially so soon. But this episode definitely left a lot of questions as far as the war and what was going on. Because we know Centipede was, most likely a homeworld gem. What kind of gem was she? We know she was a captain, which is really cool to learn. But it just left so many questions about what that light was. They're saying it's a song or a sound. It's really, really interesting. And it was just a really good episode that I didn't expect to happen so soon.
Yeah, this episode messed me up for 2 reasons. When this episode got shown off in the Cartoon Network app before they ended up releasing the episode, you kind of just see Centipede's reformed hands, and then it cuts, and then you're like, oh, this is it. Steven's done it. He's able to heal gems. It's they're gonna create their army using all the gems they have, or what? That wasn't the case, of course. And the second was when we find out that what's going on in the drawings when Centipede was drawing them, and you hear Centipede, you see Centipede just start crying, and then she starts to go back to being corrupted. It's not a long-lasting thing. It was temporary, and that just started to break my heart. It was so touching, and she's trying to communicate as much as she can, but she's unable to, and it really messed me up. But I really enjoyed this episode, and it was really memorable because of that.
This episode, oh my god. Well, first when Cartoon Network released that clip of Centipede her reformed hands, I got really excited because I'm like, oh, the end of the season's gonna be this big battle between all the gems and Yellow Diamond, but no, obviously that didn't happen. So I was really excited, and then when I finally watched it, I wasn't disappointed, but it blew away my expectations. And this episode, we learned a lot more about how corruption works between that and Earthlings, because if you guys notice, both Centipede and Jasper, their corruption sped up the more emotionally damaged they gotten. Centipede, her form wasn't fine because actually her mouth was still beaky, but she started corrupting back when she suffered some kind of emotional trauma from recalling the war. And this episode also taught us that the diamonds really did corrupt all the gems, and it raised a lot of questions as if, did they know there were a lot of homeworld soldiers on Earth? Did they not care? Was it supposed to just wipe out all the Earth? So, in the ending, I feel like it's going to come back later on in the series if Steven manages to heal Jasper. I'm not sure if he's going to heal Centipede right now, because Centipede has company right now, but Jasper's kind of all alone, if that makes sense. So I do think later on in the series, Steven will heal Centipede and her entire crew. So, yeah.
So, yes, I do hope we get to see Centipede again. And this, like you guys were all saying, was a very emotional episode. It pulled out a lot of people's heartstrings. And I do hope, even though the plot was kind of resolved, I do hope we get to go back to that one day. And last up, we have Too Short to Ride. And we get to see Peridot a lot in this episode, and we get to probably see her at her best. You see a lot of Peridot kind of character development, of course, with her getting her metal powers. We also see her get a tablet and her alien plush toy, and she also tweets throughout the episode, which is really funny. We also learn that Homeworld is now in its second era, which, because they have less resources, means they make less powerful gems, and Peridot is an example of that, where, she doesn't think she has any powers, but of course she's wrong. Although it does take Amethyst pushing her a bit to discover these powers about herself, it was really nice to see a Peridot develop in this way and kind of grow, in a sense, as much as Gems could, even though she never felt like she could.
Yeah, I really liked this episode. It was very lighthearted, but it also gave us a lot of information with Peridot. It begs the question why Peridot didn't know she could basically metal bend. Because I guess Homeworld doesn't want them to rise up again for another rebellion or something. I'm not sure why they would even give her metal powers if they were afraid of them turning on them. But it was mostly a very lighthearted episode. I really liked how Amethyst was pushing Peridot, because it was actually kind of ironic, because Amethyst deals with her own insecurities for being overcooked and small and just not as strong as a court soldier is supposed to be, and then here she is trying to motivate Peridot to not get down on herself for what she can't do and focus on what she can do. But we learned that she can basically control metal, which is really cool. It was really funny seeing Peridot act so cutesy and hugging the alien plush after a year ago she was ready to kill people. It was very cool to see that change. But yeah, really good episode.
I remember when I first saw the little synopsis they had for this episode, where it's like Peridot, Amethyst, and Steven go to Funland, and I'm like, when they usually have synopsis that are very linear, they this person does this and there's nothing else. It's like, oh, things are about to happen. I was thinking in Too Short to Ride, I thought that when I first saw it, I'm like, they're gonna fuse to end up being tall enough to be able to ride the Funland rides. I feel like that's something Steven and Amethyst would end up doing, but fortunately it was something else, and I hope for the future that the metal powers thing gets a little bit explained. We have never seen anything like that before, except maybe Lapis, because she can control the water, but that's it. She would be the other gem that doesn't have a physical weapon to use. But overall, I really like the part 2 when Peridot ends up getting a little alien from metal bending, I guess you call it, the ring over to the bottles, and Mr. Smiley's asleep, and I just thought that was really funny. And we see the alien in future episodes where she ends up ripping off the bow tie and wearing it, which I was like, that's a cute little nod. I appreciate that.
Also, Peridot has Tinder.
And Nico Atsume, the cat app.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not sure if Lauren Zook's going to still use Peridot's Twitter or not, because Lauren Zook herself was off Twitter because of the fandom, but it hasn't been updated since she left Twitter, so I have no idea. I don't know if it's because Peridot hasn't been in episodes, or... yeah. But, I really like this episode. I, too, was, anticipating some kind of fusion between Amethyst and Peridot, and I think the main reason is because Season 1, when you watch Season 1, they kind of did fusions whenever they felt like Oppo had built to it, but Asuka came out of nowhere. Alexandra definitely came out of nowhere. So going into this episode, and I guess the rest of the series in general, I'm anticipating a fusion to appear whenever it's convenient, but they're really building up to it now. So all this entire time I was anticipating Amethyst and Peridot to fuse, but then once they went into the shapeshifting thing, I was like, oh, Peridot can't shapeshift. And this is another thing that kind of hints towards the diamonds and their fear towards their own gems, or lying about metal bending powers, because if Peridot has that, who's to say the other Peridons don't have? or who's to say they can shapeshift, and she just hasn't discovered it yet. So that was really interesting to watch and discover, and maybe the diamonds don't even know they can metal bend. Maybe that was like a brand new discovery. And Mr. Smiley in this episode was really hilarious, how he was like, I haven't seen a bed in 2 days. And then Steven's just like awkwardly laughing it off. And this episode also demonstrated like Greg's like use of money and how he's like being utilized for like the gems with the tablet. And I think it's also like another episode he uses like, or like there's like mentioned something like that. But I really enjoyed this episode. It was really funny, and I also think it's really relatable to like the younger and like teenage viewers, because like Paradise like really attached to technology. And like nowadays everyone's like, oh, these teenagers just attached to their phones, and how Paradise was like, oh, I need it. So that was really relatable, I think. So yeah, good Paradise episode.
Yeah, I agree. This was a really funny yet important episode for Peridot, and it was good to see all these characters interact once again. So thank you everybody for watching Cartoon Universe's part of the top 15 episodes of season 3. Of course, like I said earlier, go check out the other 2 parts, and so I'll see you there.